when they went to the queen to tell her her subjects had no bread. Do you know what she said?
Let them eat cake.
He took the bomb.
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of The Peasant's Perspective. We're still not AI. I didn't even have my sound turned on to start the show. It is what it is, I guess. Oh, welcome out today. Wow, we got a bunch of you guys already here. That is awesome. I am glad to have you guys. Let me figure out how to stinking close this intro screen. Okay, so yesterday, I live right on the Pacific Ocean, literally. Oh, I've got sound now, Weedham boys. I got sound now. So, good morning, Pray the Rosary Daily. I'm so glad to have you. I absolutely get jazzed about coming in and seeing some of the same people every morning in the chats, knowing that you're listening to the show live. It's very motivating to me. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. You guys are an integral part of the show. I do check the chat. Sometimes I don't read them right away. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Glad you are not underwater. Yeah. Okay. So speaking of the tsunami, oh my gosh. So, I'm doing my normal stuff, taking calls, getting on some Zoom conferences, doing, what I do it's what I do after the podcast. I talk to people. So anyways, I look down at my phone and I see a message from the President of the United States of America, right? What oftentimes somebody who I've got set on an update will repost president stuff. I don't get his posts from Truth Social all the time. Although I should. I'm just so paranoid about putting any kind of apps or anything on my phone. I'm not kidding you. My phone is the bare minimum. I have like Telegram, X, and then whatever's preloaded. Like I have nothing additional on my phone. I guess I have another messaging app. It's like that's it. I no Facebook, no Instagram, no Google apps, although all Google apps are, the whole thing's tracking you anyways, but like if I have to go to like websites or things that normally have apps, I just go to the website and log in. Like I'm just so paranoid about my data, my digital exhaust. So for no reason other than the fact that until you've had the FBI take your phone and subpoena all of your records, you really don't know how exposed you are. I look at my wife's phone. There's like 4,000 apps from all the kids, all these free apps, games and stuff over the years. And I'm like, how many of them are listening to your mic right now? I have no idea. So anyways, yesterday, I see a little app telling the president saying there's been a large earthquake in the Pacific Ocean and Japan, Hawaii, and the Pacific coast are all going to get hit. Beware, look out. So of course, then I go and I, click on it and then there's like an emergency warning. I go look at the emergency warning. Good morning, Sapphire Patriots. So then I look at the emergency warning and I'm like, well, I'm in the impact zone. I'm in the advisory area and I'm not just in the watch area. I'm in the advisory area. And I'm like, okay. So I do live right on the ocean. Like my street is a waterfront street. I don't live on the waterfront side, but I live across the street from the waterfront. I have a view of the ocean from outside my house, from my kitchen. So, and my front room and the whole side of my property. So anyways, but I'm about 65 feet above the water. It's a high bank waterfront. So, a tsunami would have to be pretty significant to affect my property other than the potential of property value increases because I could become waterfront potentially, you know what I mean? If there was a big enough tsunami. So I don't really get too flustered unless they're talking like 50-foot plus waves, then I'm like, oh, this is going to be devastating. But either way, we're on tsunami watch. And of course, I have a good friend, another long listener of the show. He'll be listening to this later in the day, I'm sure. Robert, he sent me a live feed of another peasant out there that does broadcasting or, at home studio stuff, sitting in front of his desk or sitting in front of his bookshelf, had all the feeds and he was switching through them of the live feeds in Hawaii, the newscast, the news reports. And so my boys started watching it. We put it up on the big screen, and my boys started watching it. Dad, a tsunami's coming. Oh my gosh, we got to be ready. Oh, it's going to hit Hawaii in 2 minutes. 2 minutes, Dad. Anyways, 2 minutes comes and goes, and the water and all the live feeds look the same. And pretty soon, like after it's supposed to have hit 10 minutes ago, there's one of the feeds shows the water kind of going out in the bay, like it definitely receded. And oh my goodness, here it comes. And then the water kind of came back into its normal spot. And there were a few waves, nothing big at all, like totally not noticeable from when I was watching it. And the guy that was watching it, it'd been this buildup for hours and hours and hours. And he goes, it feels like the tsunami's out there hanging out with Tupac and the Epstein list. It's like not quite coming in. So anyways, I don't know how the impact was here in Washington State. I don't think it was significant. I woke up this morning and the world seemed pretty normal. Probably a lot of people in Hawaii were like, wow, that was anticlimactic. I haven't seen any videos this morning of any impact that was significant in Hawaii. I know there was some pretty good hit in Japan, but again, they seem to have multiple hour notice and pretty prepared. I haven't seen anything saying loss of life, but yeah, I'm still here. I'm not wet. I was getting messages from people all around the country literally saying, are you safe? Are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, man, we'll probably be fine. We'll probably be fine. Anyways, pretty fun. Okay, so we talked about the trade deal yesterday, the trade deal with the EU. So after the initial reports of, we're going to have stability and, this is a good trade deal for the United States, this is what Viktor Orban said, and this comes from TRT Global. Trump ate von der Leyen for breakfast, Orban on EU-US trade deal. Hungary's prime minister has mocked EU leadership, claiming Brussels was humiliated by Washington under Trump's influence. So let me share this with you guys so I can read it with you. Okay, so here it goes. Hungary Prime Minister Viktor Orban takes a swipe at European Commission President Ursula. I'm just going to call her Ursula. I don't want to try to pronounce that last name. President Ursula, claiming that the U.S. President Donald Trump had outmaneuvered her in recent U.S. trade discussions. Trump ate von der Leyen for breakfast. Of course, then they just use the last name. Von der Leyen for breakfast, Orban said on Monday, using sharp language to characterize what he described as a one-sided outcome in Washington's favor. The comment followed the announcement of a trade framework between the European Union and the United States, which Orban criticized as overly favorable to U.S. interests. He added that the outcome fell short compared to a similar deal Washington recently reached with the UK. The agreement announced on Sunday will see the U.S. impose a 15% import tariff on most EU goods, half of the threatened rate of 30%. The bloc will also invest $600 billion in the U.S. and purchase $700 billion in American energy and military equipment. It was not a deal that President Donald Trump made with Ursula. The U.S. president is a heavyweight negotiator, and the Madam President is a featherweight, Orban said. The American agreement with the UK is much better than this. The European agreement is worse than the English one. Therefore, it will be difficult to claim it as a success later on. The Hungarian minister, Peter Szijjártó, echoed Orban's criticism, saying developments underscored the need for new leadership in Brussels. Submissive diplomacy. The Hungarian leader, who has long aligned himself with Trump, often clashes with EU leadership, which made the remarks during a domestic political event, where he reiterated opposition to the deeper EU integration and called the Commission submissive diplomacy. So anyways, the EU and US have been working to stabilize the trade relations after years of friction under the Trump administration, including disputes over tariffs and subsidies. Orban's comments suggest that Trump's return to the global stage, even unofficially, is already reshaping the political rhetoric. So this is what J.D. Vance had to say talking about the Europeans. So yesterday, and if our good listener Carlito gets on here, he said, we know that J.D. Vance doesn't like the Europeans. Well, here he's talking about Europe. He's talking about the connection between the United States and Europe. So let's take a listen.
I really believe that we have a great deal in common with Europe. And I'm not, yes, the Europeans annoy me sometimes. And yes, I disagree with them on certain issues. But we have to remember that is the cradle of Western civilization. The entire idea of Christian civilization that led to the founding of the United States of America, that was formed in Europe. The cultural bonds, the religious bonds, these things are going to last beyond political disagreements. But I think that Europe and frankly, I would have said this about America a year ago, but Europe is at risk, I think, of engaging in civilizational suicide. They are unable to, or unwilling, too many countries to control their borders. You see them starting to push back against that, and good, that's a good thing. You see them starting to limit the free speech of their own citizens, even as those citizens are protesting against things like the border invasion that got Donald Trump and a number of European leaders elected. So look, I want Europe to thrive. I want them to be an important ally. Part of that is going to be Europe respecting its own people, respecting its own sovereignty, and America can't do that job for them. If you have a country like Germany, where you have another few million immigrants come in from countries that are totally culturally incompatible with Germany, then it doesn't matter what I think about Europe. Germany will have killed itself, and I hope they don't do that, because I love Germany and I want Germany to thrive.
It's fair enough. We love Germany, want Germany to thrive. We love all of Europe. We love the whole world. We want it all to thrive, right? We want to all be our better selves and live better lives. I love it. We have strong connections to Europe. Clearly, hello, white skin, blue eyes. Somebody in my family came from Europe, I think. Unlikely we came from Indonesia, right? So yeah, there's a lot of cultural ties religiously, the Western thought, philosophy, all of this has roots in Europe, and we want to see them survive. We want to have a great relationship. And I think over the last couple centuries, since the United States became independent and sovereign, we've had more than a great relationship. I mean, we've fought 2 world wars on their behalf. We've rebuilt Europe. That was cool. Marshall Plan, that was fun. We've adopted their banking policies, probably much to our demise, but nonetheless, there's a lot of connection there. But they're committing self-suicide, and the United States was very much well on that path. And it's stuff like this. This is the kind of stuff that is self-suicide. This is not having clear eyes. This is seeing race, right? When you don't have to see race here. So this is the police chief in Cincinnati. A couple days ago, if you were on social media at all, and Trump reacted to this and other people reacted to this, and I believe like 5 people have now been arrested, but there was a big fight in Cincinnati at night. Who knows who it started? Almost doesn't even matter. You've got a gang of men beating up one particular man as he was essentially laid out and knocked out. Women, as they often do, come in thinking that they're invincible. I don't know what they're thinking. I wouldn't walk up to a man that's hopped up on testosterone and throwing punches unless I expected to be punched. They walked up, tried to separate him or say something, and cold cock, knocked out, flat on the ground, bleeding, right? Absolutely horrendous looking video. This guy just pops this girl. She didn't have anything to do with other than trying to break up the fight or whatever. So here is the police chief of Cincinnati talking about this and talking about how the videos are misrepresented and viral. And let's just listen to it. It's 2 minutes. It's almost painful to listen to, but this is your country. Like, there are people that listen to this show that live in Cincinnati or in the suburbs around it. I know that, right? These are the people that are in charge of law enforcement in your area. Maybe we'll hear from her. I don't know what's going on here. Oh, I have to do that thing where I share the screen.
And the role it plays in this incident. Another topic I want to cover real quick. Social media and journalism and the role it plays in this incident. And yes, guys, that's you. That is you. Social media, the post that we've seen, does not depict the entire incident. That is one version of what occurred. At times, social media and mainstream media and their commentaries are a misrepresentation of the circumstances surrounding any given event.
Okay, so a lot of the commentary, especially on social media, is centered around race because the attackers were primarily African American, black, whatever they want to be called. At this point, it's like, you're just American with a different melanin count, right? Isn't that like the whole thing? Can we go back to pre-Obama era where we don't divide ourselves up like that? You have a bunch of thugs beating up on somebody. It almost doesn't matter what the person says. See, here's the thing in the United States of America. Sticks and stones can break your bones, but words will never hurt you. It's that simple, right? You're supposed to be able to take swear words, accusations, allegations. If your words incite violence, as in you tell someone to hurt someone or something like that, yeah, that's a little bit different. But you should be able to make any kind of derogatory statement right to someone's face anytime you want, right? The person who's guilty, and this is something that you learn really clear in prison, because trust me, if they could prosecute someone for saying mean words in prison, they would. You have freedom of speech. Even when you're in prison, you can be derogatory to someone. You can call someone's mother out. You can say the most mean things. In fact, in prison, there are certain phrases that you say that will get you beat up. If you call someone a punk, right, that's calling them a very nasty thing. If you call someone a B word, that's a very nasty thing in prison. Those words can get you killed. But guess what? The person who throws the first punch is the guilty party. I've watched fights in prison that were brutal fights that were finished by the person that was violent and aggressive. They were finished by that person, but because they didn't throw the first punch, right? And on camera, someone else went or pushed, and you have a right to finish the fight. Now, you don't have a right to start the fight, but you have a right to finish the fight. So I guess we don't know the origination. Maybe she's referring to that, but it turns out there's more camera angles. Social media got a lot of camera angles of this, and the aggressors were the aggressors. If I'm wrong, I'll eat my words, but that's everything I saw.
What that does, that causes us some difficulties in thoroughly investigating the activity. And
why? Why are you paying attention to social media commentary? What do the videos show you? That's primary evidence. So I don't understand why you're even concerned about the commentary, Miss Police Officer. I thought you, of all people, understood the right to free speech and the right to commentary and the right to, frankly, say stupid things online. Why are you paying attention to commentary and not just straight up paying attention to the videos themselves?
enforcing the law. Because what happens, that social media post and your coverage of it distorts the content of what actually happened.
No, it doesn't. Because what happened, happened, and you have a video of it. Again, now you're playing to politics. Well, we'd like to hold these people accountable, but because there's so much race animus around it, we can't hold them accountable. What are you talking about? Of course you can. Of course you can.
And it makes our job more difficult. Go ahead, right here.
Thank you. 2 questions. Where were the nearest officers?
In the central business section. They were working. They were both in vehicles. And like I said, they had to maneuver through the traffic.
Okay, so you didn't have people on duty where the partying was happening. You had them in the central business district, which was probably closed for business. Oh, so they were basically parked in an alley eating donuts. I just have to assume. I mean, if they weren't able to respond, the 2 officers in Cincinnati were in the business district instead of the area where there was nightlife happening. Seems like an interesting decision. But don't worry, social media, that's the real problem.
Second question is, you had said social media, news media distorted the content of what actually happened. What exactly was distorted? I understand that there was multiple views of the video, but exactly what led up to this? I mean, what was distorted?
Okay, here you go. Moment of truth. What is it that is the problem? What is it? What was distorted? Do we have like AI videos? Do we have intentionally edited videos? There's quite a few copies. I mean, there's quite a few angles of this.
Yeah, so I think by
looking up and to the right, isn't that a sign of processing because you don't really have an answer there?
the irresponsibility with social media is it just shows one side of the equation.
What? It shows the whole thing.
Quite frequently, without context, without factual context.
So basically, you want to know why the fight started, okay? And you want to know the context of the fight. So did the person who got hit say something mean? I mean, maybe he said something racial, and therefore its gloves are off, right? It just shows one side.
And then people run with that. And then it grows legs, and it becomes something bigger that we then have to try to manage as part of the investigation. So hold
on. You've told me nothing. Shame on you guys, social media. Shame on you, media, for running with some narrative that we just don't want to deal with. Okay, well, there's a problem here. You have a fight. It's on camera. You're going to hold anybody accountable? Well, we will, but we just don't want to deal with you guys. Okay, then don't. You don't have to enter the public sphere. Just take care of the law, charge some people and let's move on with our business and we'll forget about it. Right. But as far as like this cultural war and stuff like that, like you have no business. Here's a fight, deal with it. The fact that you're like balking at this and saying it makes our job harder. Why? Because there's calls for accountability? Is it because people are calling the station being like, hey, have you arrested these people? Whatever it is, this is a police chief. The police chief should simply say, you have the right to free speech, but you don't have the right to throw a punch. Whoever started the fight will be held accountable. Okay, great. And by the way, it's always inappropriate to hit a woman who hasn't hit you. Okay, always inappropriate, no matter how jacked up and you are, right? Especially when the person you've been beating is now beaten on the ground. You don't hit anybody else. Again, I understand passion of the moment on the part of the person doing the punching, but at the same time, that's why he gets to go to jail. And trust me, I went to jail for not punching anybody. Okay, and they called it an assault. So hello, hold him accountable. Based on what I saw there, if you'd have done that activity on January 6th, you'd probably be in for, 20, 25, maybe 50 years, something like that. I mean, who knows? These are our leaders, right? Kowtowing. That blows me away. Let's check up here. We've got Grammy. Ooh, you look like a new name. When did police? Oh, amazing. I had no idea. My eyes were lying to me. I should listen more to more lesbo police officers. I'm not making any accusations or claim about her sexuality. I just assume she's sex neutral. I just assume all public figures are asexual. I don't try to attribute any sexuality to them. Judge them by their fruits. That's enough. That's enough. And it's not good. Let's see what else we got here. He did say something racial. Still no excuse. Yeah, of course. Again, no excuse. And my experience through prison is I always described it as a microcosm of the world, right? You've got an entire world ecosystem here. You've got different races, you have different tribes, you have different belief systems, you have multiple religions that are present within there. You have an entire economy that's on its own using stamps instead of dollars, right? Another obligation of the United States, there's stamps, there's regulators, you've got government, you've got kind of all the elements to do a little study of the world. And when I was a Boy Scout and I took the environmental science degree, merit badge, one of the things that we did was we put together a little ecosystem, right? You put the stuff in there and you can watch the rain get made and the bugs eat things, and it kind of creates its own little ecosystem in a little aquarium. And that's what prison was. It was like all of life and all the cycles of life and everything was right there in the prison. And one of the things I noticed was white guys are not the most racist people. That's what I noticed. Yeah, really, truly, not the most racist people. Not at all. Not even close. Even when given permission to be fully racist, still not as racist as some of the other races. And they'll remain nameless. But, there's only a couple others. Wildly racist, right? The things that they would say openly without consequence was wild. And I believe that's true out in the wild too. I believe that the minority generally has a pass. They can criticize the majority. They can say pejorative things, but then the virtue of the majority, especially in America and Europe, where it was predominantly Christian and love thy neighbor and don't judge and all these different, axioms run around. And so they weaponize that and they go, well, I can say a mean thing to you, but you can't say a mean thing back to me. Therein is the hypocrisy. Can't be that way. Either nobody says mean things or we all just sticks and stones will break my bones, words will never hurt me. And that's a better world to live in, by the way. Sticks and stones will break my bones and words will never hurt me. When you're not offended by words and you deal with action and deeds, it's a better world to be in, for sure. So moving on here, let me see. When did police officers become the tone police? Exactly. Correctional officers, as far as dealing with free speech issues, are actually pretty good because they deal with it every day. Like, there's a line between, basically what I'm saying is I've watched correctional officers let the yapping go. I've watched them stand there like, here's the correctional officer and here's two yapping people. And they're like a foot away from the people's faces that are standing inches away from each other, just, and they're just listening to the most vile things being said. And sometimes they get looped in too. And they're just like, they don't say anything. And they're just watching. And they're just waiting for a punch or a push or a shove or contact or someone to spit. You know what I mean? And they just sit there. Yes, they have no role in policing tone or the words that are said. if there's incitement of violence and action happens, they have a role, but for the most part, they're looking for contact. And that's really how it should be. Again, it's the weakness of people when they can't walk away. That to me is more weakness than anything. Okay, so moving on. Do you guys remember when when Donald Trump met with Justin Trudeau and started talking about making Canada the 51st state? Well, Marco Rubio explains that. But before I play this, let's play Pray to Rosalie. People who were fighting were not checking their social media at the time. So it was not impacting the event. True. Right. And the police, in my opinion, should be pretty easy at just gathering the videos and watching what it says. I'm sure there was some surveillance footage and stuff like that. But again, even if the person said a racial slur, it doesn't justify knocking a woman out cold on the street. Sorry. Okay. So this is Marco Rubio talking about Canada becoming the 51st state. I love the extra context we get.
Hot mic moment, Canada's prime minister said that absorbing Canada is a real thing.
I got to be honest with you. I get a little excited thinking about absorbing Canada as a 51st state or Greenland or anything. I like the idea of American expansion. I like the idea of manifest destiny. I really do. I really like it a lot. So I would love to see Canada become a 51st state, get rid of the whole monarchy thing because, I don't sing Long Live the King. Let's just put it that way, right? So I love the idea of that. And I love the idea of expanding our natural resources, going all the way up to the Arctic Circle, having direct access to the Arctic Circle like that. I love it.
Is it a real thing?
Look, you know how that came about. President's meeting with Trudeau, and Trudeau says, well, if you even out our trade relationship, then we will cease to exist as a country. At which point the president responded very logically, and that is, well, if you can't exist without cheating in trade, then you should become a state. That was his observation.
That's how it started.
It is how it started. And I think he's told the story publicly. And that's how all this began. Look, Canada's our friend. Canada's our neighbor. Canada's our partner. But it goes back to the point I made. For decades, the United States allowed uneven trade imbalances to develop. During the Cold War, you know why we did it? We did it because we felt like we want countries to be strong economically, even if it means they're cheating, because we don't want them to fall.
Do you see that virtue? Even if they're cheating, we'll allow it because we have a bigger picture. That's a very benevolent nation. That's a very benevolent nation. A nation that wins a war and then doesn't occupy and allows sovereignty to return to the point to where we have to negotiate trade deals with Germany. Germany shouldn't even be a country. Shouldn't even be a country based on the laws of conquest. Japan shouldn't even be an independent sovereign nation based on the laws of conquest, right? But everything that we do with those, returning the power to the people, allowing them to have sovereignty. Oh, hey, we left a base behind. No, you're lucky we didn't. You're lucky it's not Emperor Donald Trump, Emperor of the Rising Sun country. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're lucky that you only have a military base there, which, by the way, is kind of there to protect you, right? It's not just to keep you from doing it all again. Same thing. It's like, what virtue to drain our resources to help a conquest country just to turn it over to them again so they can charge us tariffs and have bad trade deals and make fun of us and try to undermine us at every corner? Yeah, that's a pretty benevolent country.
Victim to some internal Marxist coup that overturns their government or what have you. Those days are gone. These are rich, developed economies. And ultimately, who can argue against the fact that whatever they charge us, we should charge them? Whatever they prohibit, if they don't allow American companies to do it, we should not allow their companies to do it here. American banks can't even operate in Canada. So there has to be reciprocity here. We can continue to work together on all kinds of things, but whether it's Canada, Mexico, China, anybody else, when it comes to economics and trade, there has to be reciprocity, there has to be fairness. And who would argue, how can anybody argue against that? The days where we just allow countries to take advantage of us, that has to end. That's not good for the global order. That leads to imbalances that create friction points.
I think that very much, right? Part of the reason why I think the European got such a bad trade deal is because they're weak. They're dealing with internal issues. They've had mass migration, if not, probably worse than we have. Okay. They've had mass migration. They've had unemployment that's been high in most of the EU countries for a lot longer than it should have been. They have unbelievable entitlement packages, and they don't have a high enough tax rate to support it. So they rely on trade imbalances to make up for their deficits. They rely on deficit spending to make up for their relationships. They rely on currency manipulation to make up for their deficits. All of that factors in. They're in a very weak position. So now you get a bad trade deal. Sorry, send better people to Brussels, which, anybody who looks at that goes, it's not a representative government at all. They're weak. They're weak because they don't connect to their people. They're weak because their policies hurt people, right? And America was definitely marching down that path. We were becoming weak. Donald Trump, I very much visualize this. He's puffed up. It's like a peacock, right? You're just a small little bird, and all of a sudden you're like, look at my feathers. I'm so big. That's what Trump's doing. He's coming in. America's great. Joe Biden, horrible, bad president, who's America great. But as soon as he takes over, he's puffing up, right? He's puffing up, and he's pushing back the enemies. He's making himself and the administration and this nation much bigger than it really is. Now, that being said, we're still a behemoth, right? I mean, we are the largest economy. We have the buying power. We are the federal, the world reserve as far as currency. All transactions settle in dollars, right? These are privileges, and they were earned. They were bought with blood. Those privileges were, okay? And so, but Trump is taking every leverage. He's projecting into the future what we will be to do that, and Europe couldn't do it. Europe has no future. None. No future. Tell me what the future of Albania looks like. Eventually, Albania will just be absorbed into, some Central European district. What's the future of Netherlands? None. It's eroding right before your eyes. Its sovereignty, its culture, its identity. Conor McGregor, running for president of Ireland, says Ireland's on the verge of losing its Irishness. Go watch the videos of Brussels. Now, I'm sure out in the countryside, everything's looking great. Still very much Ireland. And those are the people that are going to be the backbone that are going to try to have to restore it. But every video I see, and it's not like I've gone and done some deep tours in Europe, but you can see they're losing whatever it meant to be that. You're seeing streets full of people that don't match the surrounding, people that don't care about, the big thing is the beaches. You see the garbage everywhere. When I was growing up, it was like every young teenage boy just wanted to go to a Swedish beach and, see the Swedish women. And now, I don't know, there's so much garbage on those beaches. It's doesn't look like a tourist stop to me. It's not attracting me, right? Maybe the beaches are clean. Maybe those are just bad weekends when there's lots of trash. Well, those pictures are going viral. There shouldn't be any weekends with the beach full of trash. It's the way I see it. I walk around our beaches here and I don't ever see them fill up with trash, not even for a day. Might see a piece of trash every now and then, but it's not a common occurrence because we have a certain culture here and we maintain it. Where I live, we don't have a lot of different cultures mixing around. It's all one kind of, culture that all grew up with the litter bug program. So we don't litter. Okay. Sapphire Patriot said this. She said, Taylor has been to third world places. So yes, just so this audience knows, I spent 4 years growing up living in Japan. My dad was in the Air Force. We lived in Japan. So all of my first memories as a child are in Japan. I saw the streets. I've been to Tokyo. We lived on the Yokota Air Force Base, and then we lived off base in an apartment complex. My entire worldview and, existence starts in Japan. I'm an American boy in Japan. My dad's in the military. Patriotism was in our blood. Service to country, leaving home to defend the empire. It's in my blood. I grew up my whole life wanting to join the military, and my dad always like, be an officer. Okay. Okay. Then I came home. We moved everywhere. My dad was in the computer industry in the 90s, super volatile industry. We lived all over the Intermountain West, Colorado, California, Oregon, Utah, Idaho, and stops in between in different locations in those places, right? Different houses. I think I counted one time, it was like 16 schools or something that I went to before I graduated from high school. So yeah, I've seen the West and I've lived in the West, and I understand the difference of culture from California and Utah and Oregon and Idaho. And ultimately I ended up in Washington State. I've seen the different cultures. I have friends all over the place, well connected and family too. Then on top of that, I went on a mission and went down and lived in Brazil for 2 years and learned Portuguese fluently. Didn't speak English for 2 years. I spoke Portuguese, still speak Portuguese. Eu falo português. Of course, I falo português and then I have a stutter, but eu falo português. Se alguma pessoa in, and I mix it with Spanish now because I've been so influenced. Screw it. I'm not even going to try. I'd have to like switch my brain over for a second. But either way, I speak Portuguese. I write in Portuguese. I read Portuguese. In prison, when I wanted to write my wife things that I didn't want the guards to see really easily, I'd write it in Portuguese because I knew they didn't have a Portuguese translator at the prison. They had Spanish. They could probably figure it out, but I'd write things in Portuguese, right? It was our code. My wife and I both speak Portuguese. So she also was down in Brazil. It's actually technically where we met, in Brazil. Okay. So, and not only did I go to Brazil, down to Sao Paulo and spend some time down there in their big city, but then I also went up into the Northeast, into a town called Maceió in the state of Alagoas, and in a town called Aracaju in the state of Sergipe, which are essentially the Alabama and the Mississippi of Brazil, but they're about the size of Connecticut and New Hampshire. They're tiny little states. Right tucked under the point, pointing out to Africa. There are two little states under there. And that was considered the poorest states of Brazil. So I tell people I went to the third world of the third world. I have spent significant amount of time in mud huts with garbage bag plastic roofs, no floors. I've spent time in tijolo houses, talking with those people, helping them try to make a better life by taking control of their choices and making affirmative choices. I've seen heads chopped off on the streets. I've worked in the favelas. Okay. I've been there. I've seen the gangs. I know how those people think. And guess what? They're peasants too. They just want to get a paycheck, take care of their family, find some love. We're all humans, from Japan to the America to the poorest of the poor in Brazil. There's no aspiration beyond just getting to tomorrow and enjoying some moment. So yeah, when you say I've been to some third world places, and then on top of that, I went to prison. Okay. So yeah, sometimes I feel like I've walked through the underworld in a little bit. You know, not as bad as people who really live in that, because I'm just a visitor. I don't belong here. Okay. And so, because I make different choices, but yes, I've seen enough to know that our elites are disconnected. If our elites went and sat in some of the places I sat in Brazil, if our elites went and spent time with people in the suburbs of Portland to understand the intersection of the agricultural life that sits on one side and the inner city urban black hole that sits on the other, and how they seem to not be able to understand each other, but the peasants, the people that are just making up the bulk of the population, are like, hey, listen, we can't have socialist inner city stuff. You guys are disconnected from the food supply, and we can't have complete libertarianism. You farmers, you got to feed the cities, right? Because you're using the stuff they're making. Like, we have to have balance. So to be able to walk down and meet the people who are being affected, this does shape a huge part of my worldview. Let's see here. Whatever Trump's motivations, it's likely overall to benefit workers. What is he the best of a bad? Oh, hold on. Let me read this right here. Whatever Trump's motivation, it is to the overall benefit of workers. Yes. What if he is the best of a bad lot? It is still better, right? Yeah. I've often described Trump as mafia, but he's like old school Italian mafia who like doesn't want to hurt kids and wants to protect women, right? Whereas you have this other mafia that has absolutely no problem hurting kids and going after people's families and stuff. He's the dawn of a different mafia that's like, wow, you got to clean that up. Which, by the way, is something I saw a lot in Brazil. You would see the cartels clean up the riffraff. So like I lived in this one city called Cidade Universitario because there was a university that was nearby. It was the area that I was working in was about a 2 square mile city, sort of. It was literally a 2 square mile city. It was laid out on a grid. It was completely flat. So it was like up on this little plateau plain. And it was Cidade Universitario. All dirt roads, okay? But the houses were pretty, like, I shouldn't say pretty nice. Pretty nice is on a scale. Like here, you'd think they were absolute dives, but they were constructed houses. They were not mud houses and stuff like these. Were actual constructed houses with tijolo brick, and then they'd put plaster. So, you know, the wall would look normal, that kind of thing. All bright colors everywhere because, you know, it's Latin. Bright colors. But this area, when I first got there, there were parts of this 2 square mile area where we didn't like to go at night. And I was near the equator, so night was like 5:30 p.m. on. Like it was completely pitch black, somewhere between 5 and 6 p.m. every night the whole time I was there. You know, here in Washington, we'll go from getting dark at like 4 p.m. to getting dark at 11 p.m. Not there. So close to the equator, days are consistently 12 hours. So when we'd walk through those areas, I'd take my wallet, I'd take a camera out of my bag, I'd put them in my socks, right? Because we were going to get mugged. We knew we were going to get mugged. It was a lot of riffraff. And like if we had to walk through those areas in the dark, we were very cautious. We'd like walk in the middle of the street so we couldn't be, pulled up on by people in alleys and things like that. That was where I saw. So started out there, or I was in Cidade Universitario, and one day we went into the house for dinner, came out, so it was dark, and we're walking up the street. We're like 10 doors down from my house, like our front door. And we crossed a main street, and then we were walking, and there was a pastelaria, right? It makes pastels, which is a big Brazilian, it's a deep fried hot pocket, basically. It's pastelaria. Passed by the pastelaria, and there's a guy walking towards me like this, right? He's wearing a ball cap, and he's just dressed normal. Nothing unusual about it. And as a missionary, I'm like about to be like, can I share a message with you about Jesus Christ? I'm about to do the whole like street contact thing. And all of a sudden, this guy comes out and puts a gun in his face and blows his head out. It just blows his head out like 10 feet from me. Ah! Right? Guy drops down, and then instantly, right as the guy hits the ground, it starts raining really hard. Now the blood is going out into the Padelete Pipero, which is like the cobblestone that was there. And it's like, it was like, okay. So we kind of hang out, and I'm like, talk to my companion. I'm like, we're probably going to make a police statement or something. Like, we just witnessed this. Like, we saw the whole thing. Like, holy cow, I'm surprised I wasn't shaking that guy's hand right when it happened, because I was in my mind going to go make contact with him. Police show up. They pull out this cookie sheet thing that's 6 feet long and like 12 inches wide. And the crowd of people that after the gunshot go, people, and then when there's no further gunshots, people collapse in and they want to like surround the body. It's like this weirdest hive of bees things. Wasn't the first time I saw it. I saw it happen in that same area about 300 feet away in a little park a couple weeks later. So anyways, turns out the police come and they take his body and they put it up on the cookie sheet and they put it into the little, the paddy wagon, slide it in there, close the doors, and drive off. No caution tape, no investigation, no asking if there was witnesses. They just take the body and drive off. It was like, what? Turns out, guy was a cop. He was off duty, but he's corrupt. He was facilitating riffraff, marijuana dealers in that little area. And so the cartel put a hit out on him. And they let the police know that they were going to be putting a hit on this dirty cop because he's promoting the riffraff. And you know what? The police station was cool with it because, hey, if you can get rid of all the low-level drug dealers, it makes us look good. And so for the next 2 weeks, there was like 40-something murders in this 2-square-mile area. Every day, multiple people shot. No bystanders, all coordinated hits. Nobody had phones in their house. There was like a payphone. So people would get, the payphone would ring and anybody close by would answer it. And they'd be like, hey, go get Ronaldo in the blue house. And you'd look around for the blue house. This is why the houses, I think, were multicolored, because that was basically your address. The blue house near that payphone. Go get Ronaldo. Okay. This is normal. This is normal practice. Everybody shares a payphone, right? That's the number you give out. You call the payphone and ask for the blue house. So the guy comes out of the blue house and shot right when he picks up the phone receiver, right? One shot. This was happening, phones, drive-bys, but it was all targeted, and they cleaned up the riffraff. Like those areas that I didn't like to walk through at night, suddenly I could walk through just fine. There were like families sitting out in front of their houses, like having drinks at night, no big deal because they cleaned up all the riffraff. The cartel did that. Not the cops. The cops just stepped back and let the cartel clean in. The cops should have been going after the cartel, but of course they're bought off. I've seen it. I don't want that here in America. I just want the cops to always do their job. I want the cops to go after the bad guys. So, all right, let's see here. Life is about balance from the chats. Grammy, I don't know who that is. Whites are not the most racist. No, go visit third world country. Yeah, I just shared with that. Taylor's been to third world places. I also agree for sure. Life is about balance. What if Canada was swapped out with California? It might be a good deal for the U.S. No, because California is like the fourth largest economy. I mean, we just need to fix the culture. That's all. Might be a good deal, like the thought. Sapphire Patriot says, whatever Trump's motivation is to be an overall benefit to the workers. Read that. No one is a perfect person. John Atakis. And you turned out so strong and well, even with your experiences and challenges you face. We all face challenges, right? We all face challenges. Let's be fair. Elites have never understood the average man. We are not on their radar. I think there's something to that. I think there's something to that. There's a real connection with the ground. I think, sometimes the elites, they spend too much time gardening and not enough time farming, and there's a difference. Fact. Oh, Taylor, thank you. While many Christians based Westerners values life, it is not a common value for many cultures. Yep, it can be normal. Okay, so let's continue on here. That's my long story about Brazil. And yeah, I've seen the third world. I know what can happen. In fact, that is one of the reasons. It's one of the behind the scenes motivations I have is we could devolve. Just because the streets are clean today doesn't mean they'll be clean tomorrow. Just Brazil had multiple currency collapses. I talked to people about what it was like when they switched from one currency to another. In fact, they'd pull out of their drawer wads of money of the old currency that was useless. Right? They'd be like, yeah, this is what our old here. Take a couple bills for souvenirs. And I brought home a whole bunch of like old currencies that are no longer in circulation. That's a concept that is foreign to me because the dollar's the dollar and will always be the dollar. Turns out that's not necessarily always the case. Okay. And every time they had a currency slip over, first of all, it was preceded by massive inflation. So they couldn't afford anything and their savings were depleted. Their buying power went to nothing. The government paid off all of its debts and then they'd switch the currency and they'd get screwed because they didn't have, the exchange rate wasn't equivalent to the buying power. It's a cycle. And this happens. Like it can happen here too. Don't think for 1 second if the BRICS don't start offering a reserve option for international trade settlement that you could see the same thing happening to the dollar. We could have a complete collapse. Okay, so I support Canada being the 51st state. And there's other good things that have been happening. Again, Trump is doing so much good behind the scenes. You know that big, beautiful bill that was criticized because it did too much spending? Well, if Trump does what he wants to do, the Supreme Court hopefully will show that he doesn't have to spend the money allotted. He just can spend up to the amount allotted, which would allow him to basically cut budgets unilaterally for programs that shouldn't be funded. And here's one budget or one thing that actually made it into the big, beautiful bill. And I heard nothing about this prior to it being passed. Car lovers rejoice. After 50 miserable years, CAFE standards are dead. And for those of you that are car guys, you understand the CAFE standards. And this is coming from I&I, Issues and Insights. One of the most important provisions of the big, beautiful bill has gone completely unnoticed. Let me share the screen so you guys can read along with me. One of the most important provisions for the One Big Beautiful Bill has gone completely unnoticed, but promises to make the auto industry great again. For over 50 years, the federal government has been forcing fuel economy standards on auto companies. If the average fuel economy of the car in a year exceeded a federal standard, the companies had to cough up enormous penalties. Passed in 1975 as a way to deal with an energy crisis that was caused by government price controls, by the way, corporate average fuel economy, CAFE, standards required the fleet of cars sold by the automaker to achieve an arbitrary miles per gallon goal. If they missed a goal, they paid hefty annual fines. From the beginning, these standards were a disaster, forcing automakers to radically downsize their fleet, which research showed cost thousands of lives because all things being equal, smaller, lighter cars are less safe than larger ones. So basically, if you have like Chevy, in order for them to sell a Hummer, they had to sell a whole bunch of Chevy Volts. Much more unsafe, right, than the Hummer. Now, the fuel economy, obviously very different, but that was what they were trying to achieve, is you could average out your fuel economies within the car company. This created, obviously, a bunch of crappy cars on the low end to compensate for nice cars on the high end that are also being restrained. I know for a fact diesel trucks get way less gas mileage than they could if they took off a lot of that nonsense emission standards. In fact, I owned a truck that we took off the emission standards and we got 8 or 9 more miles to the gallon. Okay, we were getting 28 miles to the gallon on a Cummins 3500. That's getting better than my friend's late model Honda Civic or Honda Accord, right? We were getting better mileage in a big jacked up truck without the exhaust stuff. And you know what? I don't think that the pollution made one lick of freaking difference. Okay. All right. That truck's gone now. Please don't come after me, EPA. Go chase someone else down. So that is one of the things that would happen. The standards were ratcheted up after years, and while it distorted the car market to meet them, automakers had to sell more small cars than consumers wanted to buy, which meant heavily discounting them and then making the cost up by jacking up prices on the bigger vehicles most buyers wanted or needed. So we were paying a premium for the Suburban. Car makers routinely paid exorbitant fines to meet the standards. Last year, Chrysler had to write a check to Uncle Sam for more than $190 million. Gosh, how many cars is that? That's a lot of cars. That's a lot of cars. And you want to talk about tariffs being a tax? That's a tax. That's actually a tax. And that adds to the cost basis of the car company, which means all of their cars are going to have an allotment of that $190 million. Clearly. Duh. So all the tariffs are bad, people. Take it and shove it, man. Everything you charge beyond production is a tax. And because the government sought higher standards for passenger vehicles than light trucks, the industry responded by killing station wagons and replacing them with gas-hogging minivans and SUVs. Now you see where they're manipulating the market through taxation. Yes. So Grammy says the BB means is by no means perfect. It is full of political compromises that needed to include it for it to pass. Unfortunately, that is politics. Yes. But when you see little things like this is a pretty big deal. I'm excited to see how this shapes out, right? What's going to happen? Are they going to bring the Hummer back? I would love for them to bring the Hummer back. Throw a diesel engine in that thing. We are golden. Love it. Okay. I got a little love story with the Hummer. It's helped set the trajectory of my life. Never owned one, but I had a friend who did, and it changed my perspective on everything. I told that story yesterday in one of the 1776 live events. So that's a good thing that comes out of the big, beautiful bill. And again, it's the conglomeration of all these little changes, rewriting the economic model to support entrepreneurship, freedom, and natural supply and demand stuff. Okay, natural supply and demand. This is a clip, and the beginning of this comes from Joe Rogan. So I'm going to go ahead and skip forward because anytime we play Joe Rogan, I get some type of strike. So I'm just going to pretend like Joe Rogan at the beginning isn't here. And he's just saying, listen to this guy talking. And this is talking about taxation. And again, as an American, if you know our country's history, this should ring very true.
Go from fighting a revolution over a 2% tax on a breakfast beverage to what we pay today. We're taxed on money when we receive it, when we spend it, when we keep it, when we invest it, and even when we die with it. We commute to work to make that money in a car that is taxed again to register on roads we're already taxed to build, fueled by gas that is taxed even further, and through tolls that tax you again to maintain bridges and highways and tunnels that already have billions of taxpayer dollars allocated to them, and they're still falling apart. Then when you get to your office that is taxed to exist, in a corporation that is also taxed to do business, that almost certainly requires permits, which are another tax, you are paid a paycheck that the corporation must match another payroll tax on top of what they have to pay you. Then you go to a home of which you are taxed to own that we bought with money that the government already taxed us on. Oh, by the way, the more money you make and the more you pay in taxes warrants the government taking more and even higher percentages of your money.
Holy. That's the system that's set up. That's the system that was set up by the elites who don't make anything. The elites don't make anything but rules and regulations. When I was in DC, it was like as I'm walking down the National Mall, you could almost hear the suction sound of money being sucked in exchange for rules and regulations. That's all you're getting for it. You're not buying trinkets from Washington, D.C. They don't make anything, right? There's no factories there. You're either a lawyer, a lobbyist, a politician, or you're a doorman, or you're flipping burgers in DC. Those are the two things. You got you want to talk about stratification of society? Go spend some time in the District of Columbia. Every single person in the service industry is a minority. All the construction workers, brown. All the doormen, security guards, black. All the people at the restaurant taking your order, minority, mostly immigrants. Want to pick up an Uber? They came from Africa, right? But go to a law firm, all white people, except for the diversity hire over in the corner. She satisfied the DEI requirements, because, they were looking at a mirror and they're going, we don't hire enough brown people. Yeah. What do you, and you want to project that out into the hinterlands? Out here in Washington state, we're a non-Civil War state. We never had segregation, at least not like the big historical multi-generational segregation. And so like you go to a construction site and there's 4 brown guys and 2 black guys and 4 white guys. It's a pretty normal makeup mix. I mean, it's, one day it's mariachi music, the next day it's country, and the next day it's some hip hop, and nobody complains. It's totally integrated. Okay. You just work, you work hard, you make your money. Out in the West Coast, it's a much more relaxed environment. If you got a black guy and he's a good attorney, he's probably got a good shot at a good job. It's merit-based. Over there in DC, in that swamp from DC all the way up to New York, it's like a huge sea of people, blown away at the population density up there. Still doesn't even touch Japan or Sao Paulo, but nonetheless, you got a really significant population density. It's a stratified society. Oh, that's a black neighborhood. I dare you to find a black neighborhood in Washington state. There's not whole black neighborhoods. They don't exist. Never existed. But you go there and you can literally drive, go, oh, this is a black neighborhood. Okay, this is a white neighborhood, right? You can tell it's stratified. It's segregated. The remnants of that have, I don't know why it's still happening, but I think it has a lot to do with some of the policies. You can get rid of redlining, but all that does is acknowledge acknowledge a problem. Anyways, it's pretty fascinating. Okay. Yep. Taxation is slavery. No doubt about that. Okay. So Trump also said this. He's pushing Chuck Grassley. Trump's trying to get his nominees into office. He's got judges as well as cabinet officials that have not been nominated. So Trump, in a rare move, came out kind of against Chuck Grassley, challenged his manhood. Chuck Grassley, who I got reelected. Now, I got to be honest with you. This first statement here, Chuck Grassley is a workhorse. Chuck Grassley visits all 99 counties in Iowa. If it's not 99, it's some close number close than that. He is a good retail politician, and he's become an institution in Iowa. I don't know about the power broking behind the scene, but Donald Trump said this. Chuck Grassley, who I got reelected to the U.S. Senate when he was down by a lot, I don't know about that. I'm going to question that one. In the great state of Iowa, could solve the blue slip problem. What's the blue slip problem? The blue slip problem is anytime there's a nominee and it's like a judge for a certain state, that state's senators are supposed to give the approval, whether they're Republican or Democrat. So if it's a Republican majority appointing appointees in a Democrat state like Illinois or New York, then those Democrat senators are supposed to give the approval. So if it's a Republican, they're either going to be really squishy or they're going to end up appointing a Democrat to that position and vice versa. However, the Republicans are way worse at, their veto vote, so to speak. They call it the blue slip. Problem we are having with respect to the appointment of highly qualified judges and U.S. attorneys. With a mere flick of the pen, Democrats like Schumer, Warren, Kaine, Booker, Schiff, and others, sleazebags all, have an ironclad stoppage of the great Republican candidates. Put simply, the President of the United States will never be permitted to appoint the person of his choice because of an ancient and probably unconstitutional custom. Look up custom in the dictionary, and it says a tradition that has now has force of law. If you have even one person in the opposite party serving in the U.S. Senate, she must give consent, thereby completely stopping the opposite party's nomination. The only way to beat this hoax is to appoint a Democrat or a weak, ineffective Republican. Therefore, I would never be able to appoint the great judges or U.S. attorneys in California, New York, New Jersey, Illinois, Virginia, and other places where there is, coincidentally, the highest levels of crime and corruption. The places where fantastic people are most needed. Senator Grassley must step up, like crooked Joe Biden did when he openly broke at least 2 times the blue slip scam, and others have done over the years, and let our great Republican judges and attorneys be confirmed. He should do this immediately and not let the Democrats laugh at him and the Republican Party for being weak and ineffective. The Democrats have broken this ridiculous custom on us. It's time we break it on them. Chuck, I know you have the courage to do this. Do it. I hope he does. I think that is nonsense. I understand the Senate is supposed to be like a bulwark against rapid radical change, but it's also a bulwark against good change sometimes because they have these deep vested interests. And because they only run every 6 years, they make really bad votes in their first 1, 2, and 3 years. And then they kind of clean up in the 4th and 5th year. And then in the 6th year, they're like, I'm MAGA. I'm a man of the people. And it's like, where were you the last 5 years, man? So yeah, they should definitely override the blue slip thing. And Scott Jennings says this, and it's baffling to me why Republicans are even negotiating at all with the Democrats. All the scandals that they've perpetrated, all the crime they've been involved with, the only thing that makes you think why they don't hold them accountable is the Republicans are in on it. Right? They're part of it, which I think we're going to slowly continue to find out is that the Republicans are way more colluding with the Democrats than we could possibly imagine. But here's what Scott Jennings poses on the PBD, bro.
Democrats, because of the Biden presidency, because they lied about Joe Biden's condition, because they lied to the country about the inflationary impacts of his policies, have dug themselves the deepest hole they've ever been in the history of their party. That's number one. Number two, cultural radicalism. I mean, when the hills you're willing to die on are boys and girls sports, paying for transgender surgeries of inmates, which Kamala Harris had in the last election. When you're willing to die on these hills, when you're willing to go and say Maryland man unfairly deported back to his home country. I mean, when you're willing to die on all these 80-20 hills, eventually your approval rating will wind up, I'm no mathematician, but around 20.
Yeah, exactly.
They're getting there. And so this hole they've dug themselves in, like if I can't trust you not to put a boy in my daughter's locker room, why would I talk to you about taxation policy or inflation or tariffs or anything else? You're trying to put a boy in my girl's locker room.
That's right.
Why?
I will never forget having a conversation with a fellow J6er's mother that became pretty good friends with me. And one day we were talking about some of the J6 nonsense, and she goes, now you know why they're trying to push the transgender thing. If they can convince you don't know what's in your pants, imagine what else they can convince you about. And I was like, that's true. You know what I mean? If they can convince you that a man is a woman and a woman can be a man, what else are they going to be deceitful and deceptive on? Scott Jennings nails it here. He's like, we can't even talk about taxation. You're trying to put a boy in the girls' locker room. That should be the position of Chuck Grassley and everyone else. But you're nonsense. Like, you're irrelevant to me. If you're even touching those subjects affirmatively and trying to push, DEI and all those things, you're irrelevant. You're dead. You're done. You have no public voice. There's no majority behind you. Make that front and center, put that up, put their shame in their faces. Let the world know this guy has no authority to talk about taxation. He's trying to put a girl in the boys' locker room. Until he can resolve that, we don't have a conversation beyond that. That's the most devastating thing we can imagine to society. As a society, we could actually probably survive 100% tax rate. We could survive total confiscation. You know why? Because the family will prevail. The family will prevail. Give us a generation. Give us two. The peasants will reunite. This has been a tale as old as time. This is why the people are sovereign. This is why the people overthrew monarchy. This is why the people destroyed the Soviet Union. Because the peasants always win. Get with the program, elites. There's way more of us than you. Your only solution is to take us all out. And then guess what? You become the peasants. And the cycle starts all over again. So get with the program here. We will win. We can survive any policy decision. The one thing we can't survive is the deterioration and destruction of the family, which is the hill that the peasants will die on. We're not going to talk to you about anything else if you're trying to destroy the nuclear family. And peasants should become highly aware of any policies that do that. Okay? Any policies that take parental rights away, any policies that limit a child's ability to lay claim upon their parents for their sustenance and support has to be analyzed with the most critical of lenses. So we're going to move on from that. But again, the people who are trying to put girls in men's locker room have been trying to say that Trump's economic policies are bad. But yet these are the kind of things that are happening. Again, Trump's only been in office, 6.5 months, almost 7 months. CNBC doesn't like Trump. Private company hiring bounced back with 104,000 increase in July, ADP says. The hiring of private companies rebounded at a stronger than expected pace in July, indicating the labor market is holding its ground, ADP reported. Payrolls rose by a seasonally adjusted 104,000 for the month, reversing a loss of 23,000 in June, and topping the Dow Jones forecast for economies for an increase of 64,000. The June number was revised up from the initially reported loss of 33,000. What? So for 4 years under Joe Biden, we adjusted all the numbers down after they were released, but now they release a low number and they're adjusting it up? What are we doing here, folks? These reporting institutions clearly are playing politics, trying to get a headline saying there's job losses. Turns out it was a net gain. Whereas Biden, they reported over almost 1 million jobs that were earned and revised it down like 840,000 jobs over the course of the 4 years. And then at the end of his presidency, we found out every single net gained job was to an illegal immigrant. 100%. There were less American citizens working at the end of Joe Biden's term than there were when he began. All of the job growth was in the illegal alien market. All of it. So as those people get deported, Americans are picking up those jobs and in spades. So that's one thing. Then you've got another article also coming from CNBC. And again, this was echoed in other places like Financial Times and whatever. U.S. economy grew at 3% rate in Q2, a better than expected pace, even as Trump's tariffs hit. That's interesting how that works, right? Tiffany and Carlito, we just filed complaints with the VA because they asked our pronouns and we applied our GI Bill education benefits. I think that's great. You need to forward that to Harmeet Dillon. Just literally send it to her office and address it to Harmeet Dillon as a complaint. Make sure she gets a copy of that complaint. Don't just run it through the VA. It'll get suppressed as it climbs its ladder. They'll send you some letter saying, "Ooh, it was just a policy." Get it to Harmeet Dillon. She'll come in and take action. She's totally on the hunt for anything DEI. So make sure you do that. Tiffany and Carlito. Okay. Grammy says the destruction of the family unit will destroy any civilization. Yes, it will. Okay, the U.S. economy grew at 3% rate in quarter two, a better than expected pace, even as Trump's tariffs hit. Gross domestic product jumped 3% for the second quarter, better than the 2.3 estimate, and reversing a 0.5% decline in the prior period. So basically what we're saying is all these policy changes that Trump has been doing have been working, and quickly. While exports declined 1.8% during the period, imports fell 30.3%, reversing a 37% surge in quarter one. President Donald Trump responded to the GDP report with a fresh demand for the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates. So employment is up, GDP is up. Okay, time for lower rates. Like this is the deal you always make with us. Those things go up, rates come down. Those things go down, rates go up. Like there's this effect they're trying to accomplish. Do it. Pretty cool. The U.S. economy grew at a much stronger than expected pace in the second quarter, powered by a turnaround in the trade balance with renewed customer strength, the Commerce Department reported Wednesday. Who knew that Trump's tariff regime would end up making it a whole lot better for us? What I find interesting here in this percentage is that while exports declined and imports fell, but it reversing a surge. So even with imports dropping, we still had higher GDP. Why? Because that tomato farmer got a couple extra orders, because the car manufacturers are now running full time, because the guys that are drilling oil, like our friend Weed and Boy is down fracking in Texas, they're drill baby drill. They're at max capacity or trying to approach it. I'm sure Weed and Boys kick in if that's what you think. Weed and Boy says the only jobs Democrat creates are protesters. Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay, that topped. Financial markets reacted a little to the report. Why? Because we're maxed out. More good news on good news. I mean, at a certain point, they're not going to, good news on good news. We need to have a little downturn to have another rush up. Okay, the world of the summer economy is resilient. The word of the summer for the economy is resilient, said Heather Long, chief economist of Navy Federal Credit Union. The consumer is hanging in there, but still on edge until the trade deals are done. Oh, that's a political statement right there. Because you know what? Most Americans don't consider the trade deals at all. The period reported Wednesday includes President Donald Trump's April 2nd Liberation Day tariff announcement. Imports had jumped in the first quarters as companies sought to get ahead of the announcement. Over the past months, Trump has been engaged in multiple rounds of saber-rattling and often intense negotiations with U.S. trading partners that have jangled nerves, but nonetheless coincided with a subdued but solid pace of economic growth. Yes, make America great again, baby. Get it coming. So Scott Bessent was asked, because he's been a hedge fund manager and done all the big stuff. Scott Bessent was asked if he were today investing, where would he invest? I thought his answer was great.
You've been described as a global macro veteran and you run a hedge fund. In this moment, where would you put your money if you were still running one?
United States of America.
You've been described as a...
There should be a mic drop right there. Wow! Where would you put your money? United States of America. I remember when Scott Bessent came in, right when he started, he gave a speech and he's like, look, the United States has come out on top through every crisis. You had the dot-com burst right before 9/11. Then you had 9/11 and that crash that happened after that. And then you had the Great Recession on the tails of that. And the U.S. economy and the American entrepreneur and small business owner have continued to chug along. We are the train that thought it could. Everybody said you can't do it. Everybody said you can't overcome this. In fact, I would propose that there was an intentional effort to bring down the U.S. economy and to create the global order, et cetera, all the nonsense we talk about with World Economic Forum and stuff like that. I think there was a concerted effort. According to Catherine Austin Fitts, it was more than a concerted effort. Might still be going on. But the American entrepreneur, the American businessman, the peasant won't be stopped because our priorities are straight. You know what I have to do? I have to feed my family. And you know what that means? Production. Most Americans don't have their hand out. That's the truth. It's a minority of Americans that have their hand out that are asking for a free ride. Most Americans will get up and they'll figure out what it takes to make it work. It's just the peasant's way of life. It's been that way forever. Doesn't matter where you're at. You got to get up and you got to take care of that which was created by God and cannot be undone by man. And that's the family. Even if you get divorced and you're no longer with baby mama, baby daddy, whatever it is, you still have a joint obligation to those children. And anytime that's interfered with, it causes a lot of problem. And good, decent people want to extend a helping hand to the widows, the widowers, and the orphans, right? We want to. So that's great, but it's based in the strength of the family that you're able to do that. Again, it's the peasants, right? Not to make it too much on that end, but that's what it boils down to. That's what drives the American economy, is the freedom to live life as you choose. And the vast majority of people choose to live a pretty generalized nuclear family lifestyle because it brings a lot of happiness and fulfillment. The job is just a part of it. The American culture, the chase the dollar, it's to reinforce the family's greatness and to grow the family. If our politicians would understand that, we'd be much better off. You know, someone like Donald Trump, who puts his family name on his business. Why? So his kids inherit that name. They've already have it. He's made it great. Trump is synonymous with luxury. Trump is synonymous with greatness. And his children and his grandchildren that carry that name will inherit that legacy. We should be doing the same. Your name matters. It matters. It's what you pass on. You should seek for, wealth in its true sense, not a bunch of dollar bills, but true wealth to pass on. Put your name on it. I like it. Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen Reports posted this, and I thought this was really good. To keep power, Democrats unleashed a bioweapon, started a war, weaponized the federal law enforcement, enabled an invasion, trampled immigration law, co-opted all media, and arrested not only Donald Trump, but other political opponents. Republicans won't even consider changing procedural rules. And this is talking about Chuck Grassley, who should just straight up override the blue slip policy and get Trump's appointments in, right? That is something that is needed, and quickly. Grammy says, a few years ago, the left said Javier Milei was crazy. Turns out his ideas have helped Argentina progress beyond expectations. The left has never had a good idea, in my humble opinion. If you can separate the team play, if you can separate the red, blue, right, left, Democrat, Republican dynamic, and see things for policies, there's a big uniparty, right? Saying the Democrats or the Republicans, there were Tulsi Gabbards in the Democrat Party. There were RFKs in the Democrat Party. And if you sit and listen to some of their social programs and things like that, they're based in well-intentioned. And if they ran the way that those people that are kind of center left would propose, they'd probably work. The problem is, to get the program in, we end up adopting the actual function of it from the far left. Or to get a conservative to compromise, we end up with something that isn't accomplishing. Just see it for what it is. Just come up with your litmus test, see things for what they are. It's not team play, right? It's not always left and right. Donald Trump could have just as easily taken over the Democrat Party as he did the Republican Party. Donald Trump and the Make America Great agenda and the America First policies are what's important. But we still have to be careful. Okay? Because, there's some things that have been happening, especially on the digital grid front, that are a little disturbing, So I hope they get those things set up for efficiency, and then make sure they bake in our rights and protections and things like that, because there's a potential they're creating a totalitarian grid, and Trump's part of that. Something you got to look at. So good trade deals. I think the more we have sovereignty, the more successful America is, the more capable we are to stand up. It's when we're weak that we compromise. That's the difference. That's why Europe made a bad trade deal. They were weak. They had to get a trade deal. They had to compromise because they were weak. The United States is not weak yet. We can still manufacture our own stuff, have all of our own natural resources. We're good to go. And just so people remember, right, if you watch TV, you would have heard stuff like this from people like Adam Schiff over the last couple of years. Listen to the lies coming out of this man's mouth.
Together a report that will set out for the country what evidence we have seen to date, what evidence we have seen in terms of the Russian hacking and dumping operation, what evidence we have seen in terms of the Russian social media campaign, their paid media campaign, and yes, the issue of collusion with the Trump campaign. There is significant evidence, much of it in the public domain on the
internet.
Issue of collusion. I think there's plenty of evidence of collusion or conspiracy in plain sight.
But all I can tell you is, reviewing the evidence that I have, I don't think you can conclude that at all. Far from it.
But you admit it's all you have right now is a circumstantial case.
Actually, no, Chuck.
Even Chuck Todd's trying to be like, but you don't have anything.
I can tell you that the case is more than that.
The only thing I can say is that it would be irresponsible for us not to get to the bottom of this. We really need to find out exactly what the Russians did.
For example, in that Trump Tower meeting, there was a clear intent to collude with the Russians. There was
the micro expressions just kill me. I'm lying to you and I'm pulling one over on you face just absolutely kills me.
The willingness to receive Russian help. The president himself called on the Russians to assist his campaign by hacking Hillary Clinton's emails.
Well, certainly if the Trump campaign went to a meeting with the Russians seeking to enlist or receive the help of the Russian government in getting damaging information.
Which is what the trail of evidence and emails suggests is the case.
Yes, that would be a potential form of collusion.
What we found in our investigation is that Donald Trump's campaign manager was sharing internal campaign polling data and their strategy for key battleground states with an agent of Russian intelligence.
But then most pernicious, his use of his office, his abuse of his power to attempt to get an ally to help him cheat in the next election.
So if that report is correct, this email disclosed to the Trump campaign the truth that the Russian government had damaging information, that they wanted to help elect Donald Trump, and it put certainly the first family on notice of all of these facts.
The way I've described it is there is circumstantial evidence, certainly of collusion or coordination. There has been direct evidence of deception. And I think people, I hope, got the sense today during this long hearing about just why it's so important that both Congress and the FBI do a thorough investigation.
Yeah, this guy's a lying liar, man. Everything's misrepresented and wordsmith. Weedham Boys makes an interesting comment over in the YouTube chat. As long as I've been in the oil field, work is always busier when Democrats are in office because gas prices go high and producers want to produce when the price per barrel is high. When the price gets too low, that's when layoffs come. Don't believe in the greater good all the time, but in this case, the greater good is what I voted for. Trump is good for the country. Yeah. I think that the significance with Trump is the volume thing. By selling energy to Europe and selling energy to Asia and selling energy to all the different places he's selling, that's kind of, I don't know if it compensates. You're right. The cost per barrel maybe is down or stabilized, but clearly it's good for me. Prices go down. All right. I wanted to show this other thing too. Speaking of oil drilling, this is he won't mind me saying this, but this is Weedham Boys. This is what he does for a living. So let me pull this up here, but this is what he does for a living. Give me just a moment to get this screen share because I didn't have it. And of course I shared it on a bad screen. Let me go back here. I got a couple things I got to do to make this work. Okay. So yeah, this will work. Oh, look at that. Endless sharing. Don't really want to see that. That's not what I meant. Okay. So how do I screen share? Here we go. Okay. So this is what Weedham Boys does for work. And there's no sound. Where's the sound? Okay. Well, this is fracking. He's showing the blender shown in my previous video mixes. The water enters the suction side of the fuel and ends up in pressurized lines, either 5 or 3 stroking plungers, then sent through the discharge side through the iron and down the well. So this is fracking. It's a pretty crazy setup. There's another video here he's got. Look at this. This is fracking. These are peasants, baby. These are guys that go to work hard. These are, I don't know, they call them roughnecks, rednecks, something like that. I mean, holy smokes. This is tough work. I love, dude, seeing all those rigs gets me jacked up. This is awesome. I love heavy equipment. Woo! Woo! Oh, big motors, big pumps. I love it. Anyways, wanted to share that with you guys. That's Weedham Boys. That's what he does every day. He listens to the show on his way out to the oil field. I love it. It's my favorite thing. Okay, so, and he was around for season 1 too. So this is a little parody video. I think it's kind of funny, but this is really the state of the world. And think about this logic. If If you're listening to this show, you probably don't already fall victim of this, but we all know people who do this same logic here.
Hey, did you see that special on Channel 7 where they talked about all the problems with the vaccines? What are you talking about, mate? I told you about all that stuff like 4 years ago. Yeah, but back then it was just a conspiracy theory. Yeah, but if you're finding out now that it's pretty much true, then how can it be a conspiracy theory? Well, back then it was just people talking about it, but now it's been on TV. So you only believe stuff if it's on TV. Is that what you're saying? Look, all I know is that those things were no good. I knew it 4 years ago, and I tried to tell you. Yeah, but they never said that on TV. Bro, you need to get rid of your TV once and for all. If I turn my TV off, then how am I going to find stuff out? Oh, you can just do your own research, eh? No, that's too hard.
You just do your own research. Nah, it's too hard. How do I know it's true if it's not on TV? There's so many, the tell-lie vision, right? There's so many people that get stuck into that. Okay, generally speaking, blue collar workers do the work while white collar workers make the profits. There's something to that. Now, don't get that language going on too long. Otherwise you end up having a communist takeover and it's a proletariat. It's a dictatorship of the proletariat and it becomes a whole mess. So be careful with that. I think everybody should just bargain on their own. If the labor understood how important they were to the equation, they would barter better. I'm not opposed to unions. They have their unique position. And that's one of those things is collective labor. The more you specialize, the more you need to unionize. Frazier, funny and accurate clip. Yes, it is. This is so true. Metal is good. Yeah, I saw it on the news. It is interesting to me. And again, if I call some public figure an idiot or something like that, it is what it is. I try very, very hard not to be super pejorative to people I love who make decisions. I have made major mistakes in my life and I have paid for them dearly, right? It's a learning curve. We all have to learn from our mistakes. Some of our mistakes become fatal, is what it is. It spoils an opportunity or something like that. When it comes to the vaccine, for me, I'm like, my default position after college was do not trust the government. Ever. Verify everything. Never, ever, ever take them at face value. Where do you want to start? The food pyramid? Or you want to start with the Tuskegee experiments? You want to talk about the history of the Civil War and how that really went down? You want to talk about the revolution and the secret meeting they had in Philadelphia where they created a constitution? Well, good or bad. They did it in secret, in private. They lied to you about it, right? Whether we want to talk about taxation and the creation of money and the gold standard, pick a lane. You want to talk about the FDA, FHA? You want to talk about the housing and how they're screwing up housing by building houses instead of renovating stuff that they already have in their inventory? They're lying to you left and right. Doesn't matter. You want to talk about the local building department and how you can pay for permits. And you're not paying them, you're paying the building director directly for permits, right? My local county just had a huge scandal because the building director was taking basically bribes and no one could get permits except for the people that paid him direct bribes. He's gone now. Of course, the investigation is like real quiet, but the entire building staff has had to be replaced. Don't trust government. Verify. We employ them. Okay. So that's my default position. So when something like COVID happened, I'm like, I don't know about this. Already suspicious of vaccines. Okay. So I don't fault people who grew up in a paradigm where you trust authority and things like that. It's kind of baked into a lot of people's pre-programming. I just want you to start questioning everything. Do your own research, especially don't trust the television, right? When I play news clips and stuff like that, we're triangulating. We're trying to get as much information as we can from as diverse as sources as we can, but definitely don't trust what the news is saying just because the news is saying it. Grammy said, I'm glad to see you recognize that Australians know how it works. I'm glad to see you recognize that Australians know how it works. Remind me what it is that they know how it works. Tell me what it is that it works, because I'm yes, thank you for saying that. But what exactly do I know how they work? So remind me. Okay, another thing, just another tidbit to put in your knowledge thing is U.S. Treasury just sanctioned Cartel de los Soles as a terrorist group run by the corrupt and contemptible Nicolas Maduro, who is responsible for trafficking drugs into the U.S., help us take down Maduro and his cronies Desalado Cabello, Roldan, and Vladimir Padrino Lopez. So these guys are wanted. They've been wanted for a while. $25 million bounty. Seems like a good little price. Seems like a good fee. $15 million for this guy. And $25,000 or $225 million for this guy. Now look at the description of what they're guilty of. So not guilty of, what they're accused of. Nicolas Maduro for narco-terrorism conspiracy. Okay. Cocaine importation conspiracy. Yep. Conspiracy to use and carry machine guns and destructive devices in furtherance of a drug crime. Wow. You'd think they'd be above that. Same thing with this one. For conspiracy to distribute cocaine on board an aircraft registered to the United States. International narco-terrorists designated a terrorist organization, but the charge that they're going to give them if they pick them up is conspiracy to distribute cocaine on board an aircraft registered to the United States. Interesting. The next one, for narco-terrorism conspiracy, cocaine importation conspiracy, and conspiracy to use and carry machine guns and destructive devices in furtherance of a drug crime. For some reason, I feel like they're above that. You should go after them for like murder of millions of Americans through fentanyl or drugs or whatever, but instead it's like you carried a machine gun. I don't know. They got Al Capone on tax fraud, right? Like it's just funny to me. I think $25 million bounty for something that the run-of-the-mill drug dealer on the corner is also doing. Okay. Australia, I meant immigration. For clarity, I am not American. Yes. Yeah. Okay. I remember who you are now, from Australia. I'm glad to see that you recognize that Australia knows how it works. Has Australia limited its immigration policy? I'm pretty sure they have, right? They've actually been one of the Western nations that has done a pretty good job of staying Australian. Am I wrong in saying that? I mean, I know you have immigrants, but they don't have like full citizenship rights and stuff like that. Like they're, it's hard to get to Australia. You have to come through the airport and a port of entry. So Grammy, Tasmania is my idea of paradise. Is it really paradise? Yeah, let her know. I'd love to visit Australia. I think it sounds awesome. I was just watching a little video about how Australia is populated in the south and not so much in the north. And I was like, there's a lot of free land there. I had a video the other day. In fact, knowing that you're an Australian listening regularly, I do get a lot of stuff from Australia that comes through my newsfeed. So I'll start playing it because us peasants are everywhere. We struggle with the same things. I had this video of this guy talking about, he's a miner, and he's like, we got the richest uranium reserves, can't mine it. We got this, got that. And he was just blasting the Australian government. He's like, there's no reason we should have to import in, all this stuff. We should be a worldwide producer in energy. And he was just railing on the Green New Deal. It was two guys being interviewed, and the one older guy was just unleashed, man. And the other guy's like, they're going to get mad at us for saying this. He's like, I don't care. I'm at the end of my life. I got to say it straight. So pretty interesting. Okay. Back to the Adam Schiff thing. Here is another key to understanding what was going on behind the scenes. There is a reason Mike Pompeo is not in the cabinet. Okay. Here's why. Mike Pompeo and Adam Schiff work together to bury the Russiagate stuff. Mike Pompeo allowed Adam Schiff to go into a secret skiff at the CIA and see all the information that you're seeing be released right now. Adam Schiff had access to it with Mike Pompeo.
The first of the intelligence community's surveillance targets appeared to be a former Defense Intelligence Agency, that's DIA head, and would-be Trump National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. Another target was staffer George Papadopoulos. In 2018, HPSCI, the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, released a 243-page report clearing Trump of allegations that he and his team colluded with Russia to interfere with the 2016 election. However, sources close to the House Permanent Select Committee, led by Adam Schiff, covertly continued working out of a small room in Langley, and he had access to raw logs and communications from agencies like the CIA and the National Security Council.
So Mike Pompeo gave Adam Schiff all that access and then stood by while Adam Schiff made all the lies up about that stuff. Okay. Grammy says, no. We currently have a liberal government. Immigration is a free for all. See, I need firsthand knowledge there. I, for some reason, thought that because I just thought that they were like, they're not granting asylum to people. These are all people coming in on some sort of program, right? They're all registered, collected. Is that correct or not? Like, you guys don't have the problem the United States has, where people are literally walking into the country, or Europe where they're just, bum rushing the shore on a boat and running into the population, right? Like, there's an organization to the chaos of mass immigration. Correct me if I'm wrong there. And it doesn't justify it either. It's not like necessarily better or worse. They're still flooding the job market. They're still diluting the culture. They're still, They're still doing all of that. Sapphire Patriot, good note. Tasmania is a liberal quagmire, and it is so cold there. Interesting. Okay. makes sense. It's cold. It's actually pretty far in the southern hemisphere. Okay, so the other thing is, look at our time here. Okay, let me see. There's supposed to be more information coming out today. General Flynn talks about how there should be more information coming out very, very soon, reaching into 2020. So it says all the information we found out now was from 2016. The next batch, which we expect as early as today, is going to be 2020 and how they tried to rig the 2020 election and really were successful at it, right? And then the other thing that I wanted to mention here, and this is from OSV News, and it's a church publication, but it's by Kate Scantian, and it says FBI memo with anti-Catholic terminology said to be distributed to over 1,000 FBI agents. So originally, if you guys remember back, there was the memo that was circulated saying that the FBI should go after traditional Catholics, and that Sapphire Patriot broke my heart as far as Tasmania. That's funny. You know, when you watch the nature channels, Tasmania does look amazing, to be completely honest, but you can spoil the beauty of a place when communists run the show. I mean, I say that about Washington State all the time. Couldn't be a better state. The most gorgeous state, abundant resources, excellent weather. Yes, it rains, but it's a moderate temperature. We don't even need umbrellas here, just drizzles, right? It's a beautiful place. The only thing wrong with Washington State are the communists who run this place. Okay, so back to this news article. FBI memo with anti-Catholic terminology said to be distributed to over 1,000 FBI agents. Washington, amid an investigation into a controversial and retracted FBI memo that suggested some radical traditionalist Catholics pose threat of racial or ethnically motivated violence, a GOP senator alleged the FBI distributed the memo that used anti-Catholic terminology more widely than previously known. So the letter comes from Chuck Grassley, who promises to get to the bottom of it. And while the memo differentiated between radical traditionalist Catholics as separate and distinct from traditional Catholics, or Catholics who simply prefer the traditional Latin Mass and pre-Vatican II teachings, some accuse the Bureau of labeling Catholics as a whole as a threat of unfairly scrutinizing their worship and accuse the Biden administration of orchestrating improper religious surveillance. The memo was retracted and condemned by both then Attorney Merrick Garland and then FBI Director Chris Wray, the latter of whom was initially appointed through the post by President Donald Trump during his first term. While some of the groups named in the withdrawn FBI memo identify as Catholic, some have taken positions flouting either Catholic Church's leadership or its official teachings, including one group denounced by its local bishop as blatantly anti-Semitic and forbidden by the Vatican from calling itself Catholic. The original memo cited the Southern Poverty Law Center, a terrorist organization, by the way, in my opinion, Southern Poverty Law Center, an organization that monitors hate groups, as I said, a terrorist organization because they've weaponized the term, but has faced criticism from those who say the group too widely applies the label. A spokesperson for that group told OSV News in 2023 that there is a stark difference between traditionalist Catholics who celebrate the Latin Mass and rebuff many of the liberalizing reforms of the Second Vatican Council and the radical traditional Catholics attacked by the Southern Poverty Law Center. So basically the memo went too far and it tried to differentiate, and they tried to make boxes around people's religious belief and then paint them into a corner of future potential action. Oh, you don't like the Pope? Oh, you want to do Latin Mass? Oh, you think that your church is straying from the teachings? What does the FBI care about this? Why does the FBI care if I do or don't attend church, or if I agree with the teachings of my church or the dogma of my church or not? What do you freaking care? What does it matter to you? Did I bomb a church? Did I build a Molotov cocktail? That's the only time it matters. That's the only time it comes into play at all. I can believe any kooky thing I want. Go join the purple spaghetti monster religion. Go join that. Who cares? Who cares if you want Latin Mass? Make up your own language. Who cares? It's ridiculous. It's unbelievable to me the way the government just can't understand. Sticks and stones will break my words, but words will never hurt me. Leave us alone. Let us talk freely and openly. Let the marketplace of ideas happen. Let bad ideas be beat by other good ideas. Duh. Okay. So that's pretty much all I got for today. I've got a couple more things that I'm going to do over on the private side because I got to rack up like another hour of private viewing. I hope none of you pained yourself to watch the separate private streams I did yesterday. I'm literally just sitting there on my computer. Like, I just need to get the time. So I'm going to switch this over to private for the people that stick around on Rumble. Those of you that have Rumble Premium, I really appreciate it. By the way, if you ever upgrade to Rumble Premium and you do it like while you're watching my video and click on the link and stuff, I get a little like check mark kudos. I don't know if that translates into anything money-wise, but it advances me in the creator program, which the creator program for me is just all about getting more exposure. But it does create I have to stream so many hours, all this stuff. So I got to meet the benchmarks. I got to do my part. So anyways, super excited to have you guys today. Sure missed Ron today. I've heard people say, "Oh, too much giggling." I'm like, giggling's my favorite part. It's what keeps me alive. I'm really glad the chat was going today, especially on YouTube. You guys are talking a lot. Really appreciate it. All of you guys participated. Kept me good company today. Really, really fun. So unfortunately, the YouTube guys are going to end up going away. So if you can, jump over on Rumble if you have a premium account. For those of you that are on Rumble, if you have a premium account, I'm going to hit private here in just a second, and it'll just be us talking. And I've got 4 more little bits of information on the Federal Reserve, a statement about Julie Kelly from a James Clapper interview, Benny Johnson talking to General Flynn, and then the last thing is some Act Blue news. So we still got more going on over on the Rumble Premium side. I think this is what Rumble wants me to do, is like tease out the private side and get people to come over. You do what you want to do. It's all on the internet. There's nothing proprietary over there. It's just my opinion. All right. Talk to everyone that's not joining us in the private on Rumble Premium. We'll talk to you guys again tomorrow. And for everybody that can stick around, we'll see you in just a minute. Or I guess we just continue to see you. Anyways, talk to you guys again later. Bye. I got to update the stream. Takes a second. Yeah. Yeah, do it. What's going on here? Oh, I haven't been able to chat today. I've actually replied to a lot of stuff in the chat, but it wasn't letting me chat. And now it's not letting me update the stream, which really, I don't understand. Maybe we'll just end the stream overall and I'll come back and stream privately. What the heck? All right. I guess that's what we're going to do. I'm just going to end it and we'll talk to you guys again tomorrow, and I'll have to restream privately here in a little bit. So talk to you guys again tomorrow. Bye. It won't even let me end the stream. I actually can't end the stream. What is going on here, man? See if I can end it on this side. Do it. It won't let me close the stream. What is happening here? I can't close the stream on either computer. I got 2 computers running, and I'm clicking end screen or end stream and close room. I can't do it either place. What is this here? Let's try that. Update stream. See, did it update? Are we in private now? I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I did a little make it private. I don't know if we're private or not. I have no idea. Wow. Okay, well, see, Rumble only. I don't know. Are we on YouTube? Anybody? I have no idea. I can't end it. I literally cannot end my stream. I'm probably going to have to turn off my computers, like manually turn them off, because I am unable to. Okay. So I ended it over there, but I'm still here. It didn't actually turn off the screen. I just logged out on the one computer. So you're on. Okay. So Carlito, you're with me on Rumble. Unfortunately, I've lost control of the stream. I just sent a message. It doesn't send. It's like my clicks and stuff are unresponsive. Let's see. I think I'm. The mic doesn't even work. That's the other computer here. I don't know what is happening. I'm trying to. Let's try it now. I can't end the stream. This is the weirdest thing. Okay. I'm logging off. I'm gonna work on getting this to stop streaming, and I might have to just straight up turn the computer off. So I'm glad you joined us over on Rumble. Thank you so much. I'll be back in a little bit with some private stream, but yeah, we got to figure this out. What a weird deal. All right, maybe if I just shut down Safari completely. This is freaking crazy. I shut everything down. I put in the stream and you're still here. You guys are still here. This is crazy. Let's see. Did it? Yeah, it's like I'm. Oh my gosh! I turned everything off. And it let me get right back into the stream. And the host is gone. I can't even manipulate it from this. This is crazy. I've never seen. I haven't had this happen before. Oh my goodness. I don't know if we're streaming private. I don't know if we're streaming public. I have no idea. And there's a delay. There's normally not a delay. Oh my goodness. Well, folks, if you're still watching, I don't know what to do about this. So I'm going to have to I don't even know how to see if maybe now I can end stream. Maybe now I can do it. I still can't end the stream. Okay, so I'm going to let you guys Okay, so here I am at this endless thing here, and I go to click end stream. I can't do it. Can you guys see this?